Okay, so continue the progression, because I want to get to the place where you are now, in your career. And then, I really want to talk about like what's next, like I want to know where you're going.
Okay. Well, I don't know, but I guess it'll come out as I'm talking.
Right.
So from there, the organization that I worked for had some bad press. And as a result, Elliot Spitzer did his thing and they had to lay off a ton of people at that organization. I wasn't one of them, but I was recruited by another life and disability carrier. And I went there for 2 years and faced similar things that just didn't feel good. Back then it was like a big deal to work from home. And my son had asthma, so I would be off in the hospital with him and I can't do anything, right? I'm there with him, but I could literally be keeping the show on the road with a laptop. And it was like I was asking for something special, like special permission, special privilege. I left that organization because the first organization called me to come back. And I thought that was an honor because I went to their competitor. But I needed more money because I was going through a divorce. And I didn't want to tell everybody like, oh yeah, I need more money. I'm going to, because that's what they thought I needed anyway. It was like, I walked around with she needs more money on her forehead. And no, I want to contribute more. I want to learn more. I know I'm capable of more,
right?
But you're going to compensate me as well, right? That like, I'm not like, I don't know what I want to do, but I need more money. Like that was never me.
Right.
Still. So I went and interviewed back at the old organization and I was very passionate about it. The way they trained us was like no other. Like other agencies and carriers have poached from that carrier because the training was so good. And I was gone for almost 2 years. And I remember getting the job again, came back in the same role. And the new manager I'd never met, first thing she said was, we still don't offer work from home. I'm like, was that in my file? Like, what was going on? Right? Like, okay, cool. It's crazy.
I'll tell you, the world pre-2020.
Oh, man. Like, but I remember going and sitting down at my cubicle and running through the systems like it never left. It was ingrained in me. And I felt happy I was home. Right? Yes, y'all abused me, but I was home. And maybe this time around it'd be different, but it wasn't. There was a promotion opportunity there as well to become a senior account specialist. And I got dinged for one thing that wasn't even my full metric. So I'll tell you briefly what that was. And so you can have context, but at this organization, when the sales rep goes to the broker firm, you give them an application, right? And let's say today is November 28th and the broker is at your organization and they're like, okay, when do you want this coverage to start? You'll say November 1st, right? Like, let's backdate it. Okay. And then you sign it that you've signed to November 1st as well. Well, I had 30 days to get this in the system, contract printed and all, for it to count as me meeting my metric.
Okay.
Right. So today's the 28th, but you as the broker signed that document because your sales rep told you you want it to be effective November 1st, and you signed it. You signed it also on November 1st, right? You also got a binder check. Binder checks take, back then, I don't know if they do that anymore, 10 days minimum to clear with the bank. So even if I did manage to code all the provisions in the system would not allow me to press submit because the binder hasn't cleared. So I'm already maybe 12 days late on that metric. And that's how I got dinged.
Got you.
Okay. So I always knew like, this isn't fair, but who was listening to me? Nobody. I had no voice. So I finally got promoted and I had managers that I'm still friends with several of my former managers, and they would go to bat for me and they paid handsomely in a bad way for it. Not necessarily just for me, but for being good managers and going against what these other bad managers were trying to do. And so I remember working for this organization as a senior account specialist, and I wanted to promote again. I wanted to be a consultant. Remember, I was an assistant. Oh, they made sure that I wasn't going to get that. And the organization was going through reorg again because the Affordable Care Act had started. But now we're in 2012 as they were hoping that the Supreme Court would have kicked it out.
Got you. But it's kicking out. It's rolling into law now. Yeah.
Correct. But this was before that, the Supreme Court thing. And so this organization was eliminated all of their original positions and put in new positions, but they weren't telling people how many positions were available. And from what I found out later, was secretly tapping the ones they wanted to keep. Mm-hmm. Everyone else had to meet with the head of the office to talk about options. And this man made me feel like crap every week. It was like a demotivation session. All of my reviews were raving, but he'd like, no, you're not as great as you think you are. But oh yeah, things like that. And the same girl, let's go back to the woman who gave me feedback in real time and who taught me and inspired me to go back to school. She didn't tell me to go back to school, but from her feedback, I'm like, I gotta go to college.
Yeah.
She was laid off from that organization, and she was calling to check on me and said, something's up because you're not talking. She said, you want me to help you look for another job? And I said, yes. And she's like, say no more. She sent me a resume template, said, give me your resume. I'm going to send it to the number 3 global brokerage firm. I'm like, yeah, all right, whatever. Like this broker, I'm like, every time I emailed them, I double, triple, quadruple check to make sure everything was straight, because they were like the pinnacle of brokers, right? One of them. So when she said that, I was like, yeah, that's funny, right? Like they're not going to hire me. And she sent it. And one of the employees there called me on a Saturday and was like, oh, just want to let you know, I got your resume and, I want to meet with you. We're going to send you an email to schedule an interview. I'm like, this is happening. So I went and met with them, and it was very comfortable because being on the carrier side, I had been trained to meet with brokers. So it felt like a broker meeting, but I was talking about me. Mm-hmm. That's all it took. And not only did they hire me, they hired me as a senior client manager with no prior experience with medical, dental, vision, none of that. I just had life and disability. So that was 12 years into the industry. I moved over to the consulting side. And at that organization, trust me, that was a huge learning curve. Like with the Supreme Court thing, I learned ACA alongside of everyone at my organization because it was law. It's like, it's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
But as far as financials, I never learned like how to read the spreadsheets and, the rate increases. And I would just go to the meetings and wait for my part and talk about service stuff. But I did the same thing there, raised my hand for more opportunities, and they weren't happening. But I did get one opportunity in 2016 to start a Toastmasters chapter. And it was for this agency, like, there's tons of a vast of insurance, right? So I'm in benefits. We have our own little corner in the office. They've got, risk, personal lines, all that, right? This man was over our office, Baltimore and Richmond. And I didn't even know he knew who I was. And he tapped me and said, I want you to get a Toastmasters demonstration meeting started. Like, if you could have seen this, like, I was so excited, but I couldn't show it. Like, he's giving me an opportunity. I cannot mess this up. Oh my God. So I reached out to Toastmasters National, set up the demonstration meeting. They came out, we did the meeting, and he was like, I want you to roll this out for our office.
And for Toastmasters, for those that don't know.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Because some people may have not have heard of Toastmasters. It's an organization that helps you with public speaking, right? It was a group, correct. Everybody gets together, does public speaking, correct?
Correct. Yes. And with the way I've been umming on this podcast, I need to take it again. But anyway. But started the chapter in our office, and this organization was like, we're not going to pay the dues. The employees are going to have to pay their own dues. I'm like, how am I going to get people to come,
Yeah.
So I had to put my spin on it. I'm like, we're going to do it. So this guy, he was the president of the chapter. I was vice president of education, and I had the rest of my executive board, and people would come. I had managers in our Toastmasters chapter, lots of sales, like producers, because the whole point was, like you said earlier, you say you're a consultant. People say, you sell life insurance? We have to be able to speak clearly, concisely, and give our elevator pitch as to what we do.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the whole reason for, him wanting to do it. But he also had a list of things he wanted to achieve that year, and Toastmasters was one of them. I didn't know this. And he was also trying to become a board member for the National Zoo. I didn't know that either. The lady that got me to this job said, "Do you know this man?" And I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "Oh, I just voted for him. I figured you knew him." Right. So, but yeah, we had the meetings, and with Toastmasters, you have different speeches that you have to do. And a lot of the speeches helped us get to know our colleagues on a personal level. There were times that obviously we're at work, people that signed up for speeches, or the leadership track, which is the person that's counting the ums and ahs and timing you and doing the speech evaluations, they couldn't come because of a client commitment, right? Client fires you, Toastmasters have to wait. So I've had to give impromptu speeches, and these speeches are supposed to be crafted in a certain way. And so that helped me grow because it was under fire, that I had to make sure we filled that time because it was specific to an hour. And then I had a manager there who was on the risk side, and she was constantly hiring. And every time she hired a new employee, she sent them to me to meet and to say, "Hey, come to this demonstration meeting, see if you like it." And then they joined. Everybody was paying their dues. Everybody was showing up. I think 3 or 4 people completed all 10 speeches. And then what was great is this guy who ran our office, he couldn't really keep up with it. Like whenever he was in the office, he made sure to come. And it was during our lunch hour as well. But we merged with another big consultant firm. And we had our town hall meeting, and he announced, I had no idea, he announced that he was passing the torch to me as president. And everyone turned around like, "Oh my God." He said, "Me?" Right? But long story short, I know it's a long story, but we ended up winning Distinguished Chapter of the Year because I got so many people through the club. We celebrated because I was planning to move to San Diego right after that. So we got all those people through the leadership track, and then the organization decided to start a chapter in their Baltimore office, and they were paying the dues then because they saw how successful it was. And my son even attended and said it was so much fun because I'm lively, right? Yes, doing speeches, you have to be serious, but we laughed. We helped each other. And every room you would go into, if you go in the lunchroom after a Toastmasters meeting, people were talking about the meeting. Yeah. You go to an event off-site, people were talking about Toastmasters. So everyone wanted to know what was up in Toastmasters because we were bonding, and it was like we had our own little gang, right? Like a good gang. Right. But yeah, like that was a huge opportunity for me. And I really appreciate him for seeing me not as just an employee walking around, that he believed in me enough for me to pull that off.
Yeah.
And then from there, I moved to California because I've always wanted to live on the West Coast where the weather's nice most of the time. And that's where my career went to the next level. And I went from the client manager position with different titles for the past 17 years to an account executive where I'm lead on the account. I've got a team behind me. Well, not behind me, beside me, because that's our client. Right. And we worked in collaboration to deliver to our clients and their employees. And that's the company I work for, that I got to travel all over the country. It was so dope. Like, I'm leaving San Diego, headed to ATL. Right. They even sent me back to Maryland. Like, I've been as far north as like Connecticut. Like, it's wild. Like it got better and better. But I came back to Maryland because I am the caregiver for my mother. She's disabled, so she needed to go into an assisted living facility. So I made the decision to come back, and it happened right as we all were shutting down the world. I moved home April 4th, 2020.